What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Cryptid Files, where we are your hosts, Anthony, and that is my co-host, Charlie, and we are here to talk to you about cryptids. Tonight, we are talking about Mercy Brown, and this is our first ghost story. But before we get into it, but before we get into it, Charlie, what's been going on? What's up, dude?
Dude, I have been living the dream down here in South Carolina. I went fishing today, got there at 9 a.m., left there pretty early in the afternoon, and didn't catch a single fish, but I got a nice sunburn.
Yeah, I was able to see it on your face when we were getting ready earlier.
Yeah, I have red lighting on, but my face is just as red without the red lighting on, just so you guys... But you guys won't be blessed to see it till next week. It'll probably scaly.
Were you fishing off a pier, or like at a lake or something?
At a pier, dude. Well, I've been fishing all week, man. I was getting some... sitting by the river doing some catfishing, and then yesterday I was doing some other... I was fishing at lakes and ponds, and today I went to the pier and did some ocean fishing. It was fun. Yeah, I had a good time fishing, man.
That's awesome, dude. Sounds like South Carolina life is really starting to agree with you.
Dude, it is. It is, because, you know, I normally like hanging out in the woods and doing, like, woodsy things. But you know what? Sitting by the ocean is pretty cool, too. It's just I have been cursed with pale Irish skin. So I do not tan. I go from white to lobster. I don't know. You're more Italian, though, than anything. So you probably tan well.
I will get burned once a summer, and then it's tan from there on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once I get that initial sunburn out of the way, I'm set.
Yeah.
Cool. So hell yeah, dude. No, I'm looking forward. Dude, we got 1 month to go before this stops being virtual. We're right across the table again.
We're back in the studio, and it'll all look nice and fancy. How have you been? What have you been up to this past week, man?
Dude, we got our heat wave finally, and it was nice. We got our fall spring this week. It's been in the almost the 50s all week. It's been great. So all the ice is finally going away just in time for it to all come back this fucking weekend. So that's gonna be great.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just pounding the pavement, man. Working my ass off trying to get ready to get out of here.
Yeah.
So we sold the house already.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, literally, my neighbors across the street bought it. No realtor, nothing. So
oh, wow.
We're done. I'm moving out and they're moving in like the same day.
That's fucking wild. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah, man. This is going. It's going.
Yeah. You're out of there, dude. That's pretty sick.
Oh, yeah, man. So I'm excited.
Hell yeah.
All right, dude, let's get into Mercy Brown.
Mercy Brown, man. Yeah, this has been a adventure learning about, first of all. It's a story about vampires, about almost like witch trials, about disease, grave digging. It's a cannibalism a little bit. It's got a lot going on, man. It's a lot going on in this story. So it's pretty wild.
All right, so let's dive in. So Mercy Brown comes to us from the town of Exeter, Rhode Island. This primarily takes place in the late 1800s, 1892-ish, and around there. So the quick overview of the Mercy Brown story is that multiple members of the Brown family died of consumption, which is now known as tuberculosis. Mary Eliza, the mother, Mary Olive, the sister, and Mercy all died, and her brother Edwin also was sick with it. At that time, people believed that if multiple members of a family were sick at the same time, that someone in that family must have been a vampire, because that's the only reason why you'd all get sick at the same time. It was that, they didn't understand disease the way that we do modernly. So they dug up and exhumed all three bodies of the mom, the sister, and Mercy to examine them. And when they looked at the mom and the sister, they were already decomposed. They were decomposing at the rate that you'd expect. And when they pulled Mercy's body out, she had not decomposed, like, barely at all, and there was still blood in her heart and some of her veins.
Yeah.
So they were like, she's got to be the vampire, like, that's why she's not decomposing. So they cut her heart out and her liver out, and they burned them.
Yep.
And they took the ashes, and they mixed that with water to make a little potion that they gave to the brother, Edwin, and that was supposed to cure him of the vampiric influence that Mercy had over the family, but it didn't work, and he died 2 months later anyway from tuberculosis. Yeah, that's the short end of it.
That's the short end of it. Now, let's dive into what a vampire is real quick.
A true vampire.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different definitions of a vampire out there, right? Like we have Bram Stoker's his version of like the Dracula style flying bat person vampire. That's the basis that we know for all these horror movies and like things like that. There's also like the medieval European legend of a vampire, which is basically like a walking corpse slash like curse, and it was thought that when you were stricken, like when the plague was going around, they thought that people's family members would be the reason that it was spreading within the family.
Right. Not the close quarters.
Not the close quarters.
Someone had to be the vampire.
Yeah, because we didn't. You have to think at this time we didn't have any knowledge of germs. We didn't understand how diseases spread, why they spread. Plague doctors used to put these masks on that looked like gas masks, but they just had flowers in it because they thought bad smells is what turns you into a vampire, which we now know is not true at all. So that's where we're at. So like, there's the Dracula style vampire. We also have the medieval style vampire. There's also like, different vampire-like legends all over the place. Like in the Philippines, they had a creature that was like shift shape into the shape of a woman and suck people's blood that way. So almost like a type of succubus type thing.
Yeah, vampires that sap energy. They're not sucking your blood. They like just eat your spirit and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then same thing with Indonesia. It was like pretty much a vampire was like a woman that was like horribly assaulted and murdered and would come back and seek revenge. So
okay.
Yeah, there's all these different explanations of what a vampire actually is. So when you think of vampire, when you're listening to this story, do not have that closed mind where you're thinking, okay, Dracula or Twilight or whatever the fuck your first thought of a vampire is. Because the folklore that they were concerned about was a little bit of that medieval disease-bearing vampire curse, that like undead entity curse, mixed with just fear. And it kind of distorts itself as folklore and ideas do. This was almost like a version of like the Salem witch trials, because there were other people in the area that were, determined to be vampires. The only better thing about this was that everybody was already dead before they yeah, it wasn't, you weren't going to be hung, you were going to be desecrated. You were not going to be put on trial to be a vampire. Well, not while you were alive anyways. So
so with that, it's really just like the punishment was more, if you were religious, you kind of lost your right to heaven because you'd be desecrated, and it kind of brought some shame to your family because now it's like, oh, my daughter was a vampire, or like all that kind of stuff. So it did still suck to be claimed as a vampire, but nowhere near as bad as to be like convicted of witchcraft.
Yeah. And now Mercy Brown was actually, I think, based on what I've seen, the last vampire trial of that area, which is why she's known as the last Rhode Island vampire. Yeah,
she's the last body to be exhumed to prove whether or not it was a vampire.
Yeah, and they have done that to other bodies before. So basically, just to kind of like recap on the story a little bit, Mercy Brown's entire family was getting struck by this disease for a while. Her older brother, got very sick with it, and him and his wife go to Colorado Springs to go try to. They heard that is like a area that would somehow heal him of this disease. And it worked a little bit because the climate there actually helped subdue the disease from progressing much.
Okay.
So it did actually help. But while he was away, Mercy got sick. And when he comes back, he's feeling a little bit better, and Mercy dies. He gets sick again after Mercy dies. Not only does he get sick again, but he starts having dreams where Mercy is calling to him. And that's why these rumors kind of spread around town, because he was, mentioning this stuff. It wasn't just anyone that went to examine the body. It was a doctor and, a couple other prominent people in the town that actually desecrated the grave of Mercy Brown, brought up the body and examined it. Oh, well, actually, she wasn't buried at this point. She was in a crypt. An above ground crypt. And which is part of the reason why she was preserved so good. So the other two bodies were buried. And they have decomposed. Mercy was dead for about 2 months at this period, and it was wintertime, and she was in an above-ground crypt. So that's part of the reason why she did not decompose at the same rate that they did. Now, when they cut her open, she's
essentially in like a morgue box.
Yeah. So when they cut her open and removed her heart, they saw blood, and that was, to them, proof. This is a damn vampire. So they took the heart, they took the liver, they burned it, and they made it into like a tonic. and gave it to Edwin. I think that was his name, right? Or
yep,
Edward,
Edwin's the brother,
Edwin.
yeah.
Yep. Gave it to Edwin, consumed his sister, in a sense. Still died 2 months later. Now, this was the end of Mercy's story, but not the end of the consumption in her family. Almost all of her other relatives also got the consumption, which is tuberculosis, and died. Now, part of the reason they were so skeptical about this vampire aspect of it was the disease name, too. The consumption is what they called it. And there were, there's that thought of what is consuming us? What is, what is doing this? What is causing this? They had no answers. And so they looked to the supernatural.
Right.
And that's what they did. So, yeah, that is the Mercy Brown story, I think, in a nutshell there. Now, possible explanations for this. I don't know if you want to start on this one a little bit.
Like you touched in the story, the possible explanation is that modern medicine understands that you put a bunch of people that are sick in the same area in a small space, they get each other sick.
Yeah.
You patient zero. So that is a very quick explanation on why everyone had tuberculosis in her house. It's the same as flu season. Everyone's giving each other the flu because we're all indoors. Nobody's outside. Nobody's breathing. We're all breathing on each other and getting all each other's shit. So there's one reason, one explanation without it being a vampire. Her body still being in a preserved state and having blood in it. Like you said, she was in an above-ground crypt in the winter. That's a big stone box out in the cold. It's a refrigerator. And just like they do in a modern morgue, you keep a body cold, it decomposes slower. So... and even then, she was only dead for like 2 months. I don't really remember how long her mother and sister were dead, but they were dead longer to begin with.
Yeah.
So even if they were all in the same crypt, they were going to show more signs than she was anyway. Yeah. So there's your explanation on the body. So all in all, it does seem like even though Mercy Brown's a real person, the whole vampire side of the legend just kind of goes with the just lack of understanding that the 1800s had.
It's kind of funny. I think it was one of the last surviving family members from Mercy Brown lived to see the first vaccine for tuberculosis come about, which is a little bit terrifying.
Just long enough to see the pandemic end.
Yeah, but you lived to see Mercy Brown's grave desecrated. Now, there's also a bit of a supernatural aspect to this too, because afterwards people you can go see the Mercy Brown grave now in Rhode Island, and people have said that they've felt like almost like an angry spirit there too, which makes sense. I mean, it's a desecrated grave. That's one of the big no-nos for anything. Yeah. That's where where supernatural causation is.
Yeah, so, I'd be very pissed if you pulled me out of my resting place and pulled my organs out and then put me back in the ground.
Yeah.
So, and I'm pretty sure there's even apparitions and stuff that people have seen of her walking around.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So there's really, and the other thing too that kind of takes away from the legend is that there's no account of her prior to being sick and dead doing anything weird.
No, yeah.
There is no oh yeah, she used to kill the neighborhood pets, or she was a weird child. She was just a 19-year-old girl that got tuberculosis and died, and just happened to be the one that they kept in the crypt. Yeah. So, it kind of feels like straight not heresy.
Think.
What's the word? Hysterics.
Yeah, hysterics.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So it's unfortunate, but that's really what it is. That's the
it's very similar to the Salem witch trials. There was a lot. It started a lot with town gossip because they needed explanations for the unexplained, and you're thinking the mid 1800s now in Rhode Island, and there's not much going on. So when you have some form of excitement like this, holy shit, there's a vampire in town, that's gonna spread like a wildfire. So I think that's part of the reason why it grew so much. Now, that is the end of the Mercy Brown vampire story. There's also the Mercy Brown ghost story too. It's a whole separate aspect because it's a desecrated grave. That is the biggest no-no. If you believe in the supernatural, one of the main places that you can find ghosts is places where graves have been desecrated. On top of a Native American graveyard, if they build a highway,
Right.
That's where ghost
Or
hunters go, and holy
right,
crap.
or graves have been moved and not remarked.
Or if
Stuff like
somebody
that.
was buried under a house and
Yep.
body was never found.
Or bodies that are buried without parts, like somebody like there's people that are buried without their head to like by people on purpose to be like you'll never rest because you're not whole and things like that. So here she is buried without two of her organs. She'll never be whole again, and not willingly either. Because I'm pretty sure there's not like hundreds of organ donors out there that are pissed off.
No, yeah.
Because they were like, take them, but she was not. She's just like, I'm dead. Don't touch my shit.
Yeah, like Einstein, they took his brain without his family's permission.
And he's probably out there pissed.
He's probably pissed. I wouldn't want the ghost of Einstein coming after me, man.
Guy invented the nuke.
Yeah. Well, not really, but yeah.
Imagine what he could do with fucking ghost technology.
Yeah, ghost technology.
The ectoplasm bomb.
Yeah, but yeah.
Now she is said to haunt her gravesite. She's said to, you feel a dark presence, an evil presence, an angry presence. Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's documents of her wandering the area.
Yeah.
Being seen standing out there. So
we can visit the ghost. The graveyard is still there. The original crypt where she was taken out of is still standing, and she has a gravestone there. So you can go check all of that out in Rhode Island. So
yes,
which is pretty cool. They haven't desecrated it anymore after that, which is a good thing. I think.
Yeah. So it'll be another stop on the Cryptid Files DNR road trip that will be taking eventually to see the whole world of cryptid stuff.
Yeah, all cryptid stuff. Now I was actually engaging in a conversation on Reddit today about this.
About Mercy Brown?
Well, yeah, it was actually, is Mercy Brown considered a cryptid through the vampire story, or is she considered a cryptid through the ghost story? And would you consider that a cryptid? What do you think, AJ?
So, by definition, a cryptid is a being that is thought to exist but is not proven to.
Well, creature.
Creature. So, I honestly don't think that Mercy Brown would be considered a cryptid because she is a real person, yes. And while I don't think a ghost counts as a cryptid.
Yeah.
So the ghost half of her, that is just straight up, she's a ghost. There's a ghost story that goes with it. But I think that maybe Mercy Brown the vampire could be considered a cryptid because I would consider vampires cryptids.
Yeah, here's my problem with it. I would consider maybe an unknown vampire a cryptid.
Okay.
Mercy Brown is someone that we know. We know Mercy Brown existed. We know about her body. Now, our only concern is whether or not she had vampire powers. And I think she didn't. So I really wouldn't...
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I really wouldn't consider her a cryptid at all. That's what a lot of people on Reddit said. A lot of people said they generally wouldn't consider vampires cryptids. I kind of disagree with that because there is... The folklore of vampires is so broad that many vampires have just been considered like blood-sucking creatures. Some of them are human. Some of them were born vampires. Some of them were human
transformed.
Like almost like I consider a Rougarou a cryptid.
Right.
I would consider some vampires cryptid too. Mercy Brown, I wouldn't necessarily consider her a cryptid though. So that's going to be a.
But you know what? It's even though we're called the Cryptid Files podcast, we're still DNR Paranormal.
No, 100%.
And we are talking ghosts.
Yeah, we're doing the
we're doing them all, man.
That's the point of this podcast is so we can dive into these things and really break down what they are. And some may be cryptid, some may not be cryptid. Does that mean Mercy Brown's not fucking cool? No, I think this is one of the coolest ones we've probably done so far. Just based on the in-depthness of the story and how much there is to go about with this. Because you can really get into a wormhole. Looking some of this stuff up because it's like the Salem witch trials. There's we all know they weren't witches. We know that a lot of those Salem victims were victims in a terrible situation. Yeah. Does that mean that witches did not exist in that area at that time, and none of them could have possibly done some type of magical thing. I don't know. So you always have to. I feel like I always have that little thought in the back of my head of what if.
Charlie's a witch. If he weighs more than wood, we have to burn him.
Yeah. Obviously, the Salem witch trials were atrocious, acts that they've done to murder women that they didn't like, but that doesn't defeat the lore of witches.
I think what we gotta have to do here is, with both your battle and with our rating system, we are gonna take Mercy Brown the vampire and Mercy Brown the ghost.
Okay, we're gonna have a two.
So we're gonna see if Charlie thinks he can fight Mercy Brown the vampire, and then Mercy Brown the ghost.
All right, cool. So, but I also want to know if you can fight Mercy Brown the ghost, because you're the more professional ghost hunter part of this.
You're in my house now, baby.
No, 100%. I mean, this is your go-to, AJ. Actually, we should just let me do the vampire side of things. Let me hear your idea for how you would fight Mercy Brown the ghost.
The ghost. Okay.
From a ghost hunter's professional opinion here.
All right. Are you ready, Charlie?
Yes, I am ready.
Can you fight Mercy Brown the vampire?
This type of vampire, 110% I could fight. First of all, the folklore for this type of vampire is that they only really attack family and afflict them with disease. I'm not related to Mercy Brown at all. And she is kept in a fucking crypt with a wooden door. I could bust this thing open, and just like the doctor and those other people did, and rip her heart out and burn it. So I could, 100%. I think I could. Now, if she was awake doing undead things, I think I still could too, because once again, this is not the Dracula style vampire. This is like undead, disease-inflicting vampire, and I think I could definitely get her.
Right, you just can't hang around her for too long, and then
and get tuberculosis. Even if I get tuberculosis, I'd go to the doctor, because we have those now, and I think I'm vaccinated. Yeah, I have the tuberculosis vaccine.
I think it's part of like that big vaccine we get when we're babies.
Yeah. So I'm vaccinated. Yes, I could fight Mercy Brown. I could fight her as a human and a vampire. No,
yeah, that sounds about right. I support you fighting Mercy Brown.
Yeah. Now the real question, AJ, how would you fight this ghost if this was a ghost? If you had to defend yourself from Mercy Brown the ghost.
So here's the thing. So Mercy Brown the ghost is an angry spirit. That's why she's here. If she is hanging around, I haven't gone up there. I haven't seen her, so I can't assert whether or not she does exist and wanders around the grave sites. But just going off what is alleged and all that, she sounds like she's pissed. So an angry ghost normally just wants the wrong things to be put right. So there's two ways to handle this. Well, really three ways. The first way is impossible. We cannot give her back her heart and her liver because her brother drank them.
Give her a new one.
That would be the easiest way. So the second easiest way is to essentially what you have to do is reason with it and explain to them why what they're missing is missing and and the fact that they can't get it back.
Yeah.
So that one's tough because they are mad, and if they are mad enough, she's not going to want to listen to me, which means I have to get around that. I have to keep defending myself and being like, listen to me. So that's tough.
Yeah.
And then battle number 3 is essentially like an exorcism. Like I got to go to war with this bitch. And with that, like when Chris and I ghost hunt, do investigations and stuff, we follow the law of energy and we follow the law of like projection. Yeah. Basically, nothing we do subscribes to any one kind of theory of the paranormal, meaning like you see movies about like exorcisms, or you see movies about like voodoo, and you see shows and things about like Spanish demon magic and things like that, where they have certain rites and they have certain ways and all that, and then you think to yourself like, well, which way is the right way? Like, is it the exorcism? Do I have to sit there and be like, the power of Christ compels you? Do I have to fucking pour goat milk and chicken blood down someone's throat to get the ghosts out of there? Do I need to be, like a Ghostbuster with all this weird technology and salt guns and things? Does it have to be like pagan rituals? And the reality is whichever one you believe in is the one that's going to work, because it's a conduit for your energy. So you strongly believing that a slice of Kraft mac and cheese will protect you, you believe that's strong enough, that slice of Kraft mac and cheese is gonna protect you.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're projecting your energy through. It's the same thing like ghosts feed off of your own energy. If you fear something, it gets stronger. If you treat it like it's not a threat, it can't manifest as strong because it feeds on the energy that you put out in the world. So
you gotta fight a ghost like you're fighting Pennywise.
Yeah, essentially, yes.
Yeah.
That is the closest way to put it. You have to coming at Mercy. If I'm not going to be able to reason with her, and the only other way I can fight her is essentially to just assert myself over her. I'm going to get canceled for saying that out loud. That sounds really bad out of context.
Yeah, sounds pretty fucked up, Patty.
You just have to believe in what you're saying. You have to tell her straight up. Essentially, got to tell her to calm the fuck down and mean it in one way or another. Whether it's through the Christian way of the power of Christ compels you to leave this place and rest, or going at it in a more druidic pagan way and performing crystal rites and stuff like that to make her calm down, or just straight up me sitting there like a dude and being like, yo, chill, you're pissed off at the wrong people. Like, the people that pulled you out of the ground are long dead and there's nobody here left that has done anything to you. Like, you're scaring the wrong people and it's time for you to go home.
So you're saying I would be one of the best ghost hunters on the planet just because I'm so confident in my own abilities?
It's honestly, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can beat the Jersey Devil. I'm pretty sure you can handle a ghost.
Yeah.
So the reality is, like, I'm not gonna be doing this. She's not a demon. I'm not going to battle with this thing. I don't have to bring anything scary. I literally just have to. And she's also not known to attack people. She makes you uncomfortable.
Well, she's also known to be. I mean, she's a victim of a terrible
exactly.
thing.
She's a 19-year-old girl that died of disease and then got her body pulled apart.
Yeah.
So she's just pissed. She's not
devoured by her brother.
She's not,
right.
She's not malevolent. She's not evil. She's not the spirit of an axe murderer that's like, I still can kill people. She's just a pissed off teenage girl. So yeah, I could fight the ghost of Mercy Brown. I probably wouldn't even fight. It'd be more like an argument.
Yeah. All right. Wow. It's nice seeing you confident in yourself for once. And I say that with a heavy heart, man. I'm glad you finally think that you could fight one of these cryptids.
I can take on Mercy.
Yeah. But all right, let's talk about rating.
A rating. Yeah, so let's rate the vampire first.
Okay, Vampire Mercy. I'm going to write a V right here for vampire. All right. So I'm going to start off with, we start off with real, right? How real she is?
Yeah. How realistic do you think that she's a vampire? Like, obviously we know she's a real person, so that's automatically a 1. But, like, how realistic do you think it is that she's a vampire?
I don't think it's realistic she's a vampire. I think there's a chance. There is a smidget of a chance. I think there's a chance maybe there was a vampire in the family, but I don't think it was her if we're talking about this type of legend. I would say, listen, I'll give it a 1.2. Actually, no, I'm going to give it a 0.8. I'm going to give it a 0.8.
A 0.8?
0.8, dude, because honestly, once they killed, or they did what they were supposed to remove the vampire spirit, it didn't work. Her family was still plagued with this terrible disease. If it was like a family curse of some sort, and they thought that she being the vampire was the cause of it, didn't work. It flat out did not work. Maybe if they would have killed her and everybody would have been healthy immediately after, I would have been like, yeah, no, she's a vampire. I do not think she's a vampire, though. So I'm going to give it a 0.8. What about you?
I'm going to automatically give her a 1 because she is a real person, does exist.
Yeah.
But as for the vampire half, we're going to make it 1.1 because
1.1.
The chances of her being a vampire are very slim to none.
Yeah. All right.
Now, how cool do you think she is?
Yeah. I think she is very cool. I think the story is super cool. I love when the stories are well documented and there is physical evidence of the story. You know, we have the crypt. We have the fucking grave now. It was dug up by a doctor. There's actual cannibalism in this fucking story. And if she was the vampire, good for her for killing the rest of those fucks. Yeah, dude, I think this story is really cool. And especially not only because it's a vampire, but because it's the like old school version of it. It's like the medieval version. So I'm going to give this a 4 for cool.
I agree with you. I think it's a cool story. I think
Yeah.
that everything that comes along with it, it is legit. Like, it happened. I think I'm gonna give her. What'd you give her?
4.
4
Yeah.
out of 10.
Out of 5.
Oh, that's right. It's out of 5.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, wow, 4 out of 10. That's really fucking low.
You silly
right.
goose. Silly goose.
Let's go with, you know what? I think I'm just gonna agree with you. I'm gonna give her a 4 too.
4.
It's not super badass, but it is a cool story.
Yeah. Now the originality of this story. Let me start this off because I know. Look, she's a vampire. She is a vampire, and that is not a super original idea. In fact, this story comes from medieval times. This version of it comes from medieval times. There's older versions of, vampires, of undead. Some cool things about this story is they actually did follow through 100%. It's documented. They followed through with ripping the heart out and consuming the human heart.
And liver.
In the 1800s, which that is absolutely mind-boggling. That is Civil War era that this is happening. Civilization has, started to reach a zone here, and we're still eating people's hearts. So I think the basis of the story, not very original, but the time when it happened is so bizarre. She is the last vampire for a reason. People were not doing this at this time period. It's still, I'm going to give her a little bit of buff just for that. So I'm going to give her a 2. Because she's a vampire. That is not an original idea. I get it.
Right.
It's folklore based. But just the fact that this was happening at a time period where us of a society has almost moved past this as a whole, and they have gone through, because they've gone through like bodies before and checked to see if they were vampires and whatnot. But the fact that they've actually consumed the human heart and liver at this period of time to fight tuberculosis, and you have to think there's people that were alive at this time period that were alive for the tuberculosis vaccine coming out.
Right.
Like modern medicine coming out within the same person's life as them eating human hearts.
Right. It only came out 30 years later. Not even.
Absolutely bizarre.
So
absolutely bizarre. Yeah. So I'm gonna give it a 2 just for that fact.
I agree with you, but I still think that's a high score.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna bring it. I'm gonna be a little bit lower than you. I'm gonna give it a 1.7.
1.7.
You know what? 1.75. I'll give it 1 3/4.
All right. 1.75. All right. Before we math duck this.
Yes, let's do the ghost side.
Let's do the ghost side.
And we'll see which one wins.
For
once, we have somebody against themselves.
Yeah, somebody fighting themselves here. So, G for ghosts. All right, you start this off, AJ. How cool is this one?
Well, we got to go with how realistic she is first.
Oh, realistic. How real is this?
And you know what? I'm a firm believer in ghosts.
Yeah.
So, and I'm a firm believer in ghosts with a reason to be a ghost. So, she's a pissed teenage girl. So, with that, since I haven't seen her personally, and it's not something like the Blue Devil that's legit just a wolf that I say I can say I haven't seen it, but I can guarantee it's real. Yeah. I'm gonna have to give her 4.5 because the chances of this being up there is pretty legit.
That's a pretty solid score. I'm gonna say this. I believe in ghosts. I believe in spirits. I believe in... If anyone has a reason to be a ghost, it's someone that got their heart eaten by their own family members. That is some creepy shit. Just that idea alone. That imagine your brother eats your heart when you die to stop you from... Because he thinks that you're some evil being that has cursed him and the entire family. That is... It's got a cannibalism and a desecrated grave. Yeah, I have a lot of faith that this could be a ghost. I haven't seen it, and I don't know that this is real. I know the story's real, which is a good buff to it, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a 4. Just a flat 4.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is still a monster of a score.
With that being said, how cool do you think Mercy Brown the Ghost is?
Cool as fuck. That is... Yeah. Look... I love when ghosts have reasons to be ghosts. There is a different feeling you get when somebody says, "Oh, there's a ghost in the graveyard." I'm like, okay. But if you tell me there's a person in the graveyard that was buried by their brother after they ate buried by their brother and was cannibalized by their family, or some wild story to go along with it, I'm like, oh shit, it's a little spooky, man. That's a little scary. Yep. So yeah, no, that's a pretty cool thing there. So yeah, pretty fucking cool. 4.2.
4.2.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree with you completely. Ghost stories are always kind of neat, but when you have a ghost story with as much detail and reason and
history
lore behind it, it becomes something cooler than just like
physical evidence, still standing monuments. Her grave, her crypt that they pulled her body out of and removed her heart in is still there, and the grave that she's currently in is still there.
Yes.
It's pretty wild.
So I'm gonna give her. I can't give her a straight 5 because she's not like a badass ghost.
Yeah, it's not like she's, like has weapons of destruction. And,
right. She's not like glowing red eyes and screaming at people. She just kind of wanders around the graveyard.
Yeah.
But she's still pretty sweet. So I'm going to give her a 4.25.
4.25, 4.25.
4.25.
All right. Now, our final category, how original is this? Now, I'm sorry for look, if I'm looking at this from a ghost story perspective, it is kind of, like, it's really cool, really fucking cool, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of the classic ghost story in a sense, where something terrible happened to somebody and they turn into a ghost. And, it's a little bit different than the vampire side of things, because for this vampire side of things, I'm putting like timeline and perspective and all this cool stuff. Right. It's still not very original. So I think the ghost story is almost more unoriginal than the vampire story, if that makes sense.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a 1.75, which some people are going to give me shit for, but fuck it.
Dude, honestly, I'm going to give it even less than that because it's literally like such a run-of-the-mill ghost.
I gave her the 0.75 just because it was a vampire into a ghost, which is a little different. But I don't think she was a fucking vampire in the first place, so it's not really that much different. Because the ghost is from a non-vampire point of view. She wouldn't be a ghost if she was the vampire.
I mean, she could be a vampire ghost, and then it would have got a whole new system.
Yeah, but the point of her being a ghost is because they were wrong, and they did her wrong.
That's true, which kind of then defeats the vampire story.
Yeah.
If she is a ghost. Yeah. So that's even more of a... Okay. But yeah, it's a pretty run-of-the-mill story. It's a girl done wrong, becomes a ghost, and is hanging out. So that's a dime a dozen. I've seen like 6 of that already in the time I've done this. So I'm gonna give it like a 0.3.
0.3.
It's not unique.
All right. Yep. That's a very very good score, I think. I was being very generous with my 1.75.
Too generous there, buddy.
All right, let's get the math duck up, and we'll get the math calculator up too.
Math duck is ready for the vampire.
Math calculator is ready. All right, vampire side of things, we got a 0.8 plus a 1.1 plus a 4 plus a 4 plus a 2 plus a 1.75. And we have a total of 13.65, which is a low score. Not our lowest, though. Not our lowest.
Not our lowest. Not a good one. Now, what does the ghost side have?
The ghost side is going to be a little bit better. Actually, a lot of bit better. So we got a 4.
I'm at the... There it is.
Can't do the math without the math, though, dude. Come on.
Yeah, math was slacking. Sorry.
Yeah, 4 plus 4.5.
What the hell's going on with math, dog? There it is.
Holy shit, dude. You better get this under control. Plus
4.2
plus 4.25 plus 1.75 plus 0.3. And we have a total score of 19, which is a pretty...
That is a pretty substantial difference.
Yeah, pretty substantial difference. And 19 is a pretty high end of the average. Not one of our monster scores, but it is pretty up there for like the mid-range. So that's cool. But yeah, no, much cooler ghost story than it would be a vampire story. And it's not a cryptid in my point of view. This is more of like a spirit type of deal. I think the chances of her being a vampire are so fucking slim that it's almost non-existent. I think the odds of her being a ghost are pretty heavy. Some like type of spiritual entity running around. I don't know. You don't go around messing with people's graves. Don't do that shit.
Don't touch people's dead bodies.
I don't care what religion you are. Almost every religion knows you don't tear up graves. It's not a good thing to do. It's a bad thing to do. So you're gonna piss off somebody. Yeah, dude, that's Mercy Brown, man.
Yeah, that is the story of Mercy Brown. That's it. That's what it was. That's our first ghost story, man. It's just cool. We're building, we're growing, and we're showing new stuff. For anyone who is not a member of our Discord, you should get in our Discord. It is in the show notes and all the other cool stuff. We have an everyone chat where everyone talks about all of our cool stuff. We have an update chat where Charlie and I just post news. So I post in there whenever we drop new merch, when we are going live, if anything else is going on. Cool. Jump in our Discord. Check us out on all of our social media. If you're not following us here, do that. Follow us on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff where we post pictures and write-ups of our cryptids, of paranormal investigations, all that kind of stuff. Our TikTok, we have to put some work into, but we're getting there. Jump on all that cool stuff to stay informed and see more cool content from us.
Yeah. And also, I want to do a quick shout-out to another podcast I found.
Yes.
It's called It's a Circle, and it's like a paranormal, like cryptid style podcast too, a little bit similar to us. And some really cool stuff. They're new and up and coming too, and they're on Spotify, so check them out. They got a couple cool episodes out there. They got a really cool flow too. They're pretty short episodes. Well, some of them are pretty short, some of them are pretty long, kind of like the way we do things. Sometimes we have a lot to talk about, sometimes we don't.
But, we keep it honest.
Yeah, we keep it honest. I'm not gonna oversell a cryptid that's not that fucking cool.
Like the bunyip, Matt.
Yeah, fuck you, Matt. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, but
so
sweet.
Yeah, that's where we're gonna leave you this week. Stay tuned.
All right.
Until next time, guys.
Yeah.
We've been Anthony and Charlie, and this has been the Cryptid Files.
Peace.